Today's reading is from Matthew 13. That same day Jesus went out of the house and sat beside the sea. Such great crowds gathered around him that he got into a boat and sat there, while the whole crowd stood on the beach. And he told them many things in parables, saying, Listen, a sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some seeds fell on the path, and the birds came and ate them up. Other seeds fell on rocky ground, where they did not have much soil. They sprang up quickly, since they had no depth of soil. But the sun rose, they were scorched, and since they had no root, they withered away. Other seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. Other seeds fell on good soil and brought forth grain, some 100-fold, some 60, and some 30. Let anyone with ears listen. Hear then the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what is sown in the heart. This is what was sown on the path. As for what was sown on rocky ground, this is the one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet such a person has no root, but endures only for a while. And when trouble or persecution arises on account of the word, that person immediately falls away. As for what was sown among the thorns, this is the one who hears the word, but the cares of the world and the love of wealth choke the word, and it yields nothing. But as for what was sown on good soil, this is the one who hears the word and understands it, who indeed bears fruit and yields, in one case 100-fold, in another 60, and in another 30. Today's reading works best if you imagine yourself within the story. Jesus goes to sit quietly by a lake, and before he knows it, he's surrounded by crowds of people, all wanting him to do his miracles and tell his stories. He gets into a fishing boat and he pushes out from shore whilst the crowds stand on the beach round him. He creates the amphitheatre effect, if you like, so that they can all hear him better. And he tells them this story, the one we've just heard, all about a farmer growing some seed. And it's a great story, it's a funny story, it's almost slapstick. The image of a farmer sowing seeds so carelessly, so randomly, is ridiculous to the farming community. And as the seed represents the gospel message, the news of who Jesus is and why that's important, then this story gives us this wonderful image of how indiscriminate and how inclusive that message really is. And to be honest, that's where normally I would focus with this story. But today we don't just hear the parable, we hear the explanation that Jesus gives his disciples. So today I want to think a little bit more about that. In the story, the seed falls in 4 different places, and of the 4, only one grows and survives. It's worth noticing that. There are far more reasons for no growth than there are for growth. And I'm sure you recognise these reasons, they're not going to be unknown to you. The first seed falls on the path. Now, this isn't a path of neatly laid flagstones. Paths through fields would be made from people walking over and over again on the same bit of land until the soil becomes compacted and hard and a pathway is formed. I'm sure you can think of people who have been trampled and crushed over and over again by life. And they too have become hard. They've created this barrier around themselves, protecting them from being hurt, but also excluding themselves from hearing that message of love. The second seed falls on rocky ground. It grows for a short time but has no root, so soon dies off. And the third seed falls among thorns. It grows for a while but then's choked by the thorns and dies. Again, I'm sure that you can think of examples of these. Those of you who have been in church life for a long time will, I'm sure, have seen people who look like they're growing in faith and then all of a sudden they fall away. The cost of faith, the reality of the difference it makes in their lives, all becomes a bit too much. or sometimes the struggles of life, maybe their own illness or caring for someone they love, or perhaps the death of a loved one, knocks their faith and they walk away from it all. Only the fourth seed takes root, grows and bears fruit, and that seed falls on good soil. Now, I'm no gardener. Even 16 weeks of lockdown have not turned me into a gardener. I am an expert in growing wildflowers and brambles. However, I do also have a bit of a crush on Alan Titchmarsh and Monty Don. And I'm reliably informed by these two lovelies that in gardening, it's all about good soil. And good soil, they tell me, doesn't just appear. You can't just buy it from the garden centre, it takes time. So today I want you to consider how you create good soil in your own lives for your faith to take root, be secure, grow, flourish and bear fruit. Good soil requires tilling and weeding, turning it over, taking out the bits that shouldn't be there and aerating it, allowing the oxygen in. Spiritually, that's examining our lives, stripping out the things that have just become habit but aren't doing us any good, looking at Bible passages from different viewpoints, allowing ourselves time to think, to wonder, to question, to doubt, and giving space for the Holy Spirit to work within us amongst that. Good soil needs good pH balance, not too acidic and not too alkaline. Now, balance in life is not an unusual concept for us. We know that we need a balanced diet because that's best for us, and we talk of work-life balance. But balance within our faith, what does that look like? Well, it's the balance between certainty and mystery, because you need a bit of both. The times when you know what God is up to, and the times when you just need to trust. The times when you know that God is right there, and the times when you just keep on keeping on, trusting that you're going the right way, doing the right thing. For spiritual growth, we need both of these times. Good soil requires other organic matter, and it's often the old plants that have bloomed, died and decomposed, bringing nutrients back to the soil. As a church, we often mourn what has gone before, what has previously grown and produced fruit but is now no longer. But take heart, because this shows that nothing is wasted. All that is and was good plays a part in the ongoing story. Whether it was youth groups, children's clubs, Bible study groups, choirs or anything else, the fact that it once lived now gives nutrients to our spiritual soil. It enables us to create good soil for future seeds to grow. And that also applies to the here and now. As we start to rebuild after this pandemic and things look very different, that does not mean that all was lost and all was wasted. Not everything that we had before will survive, and that's okay. What bloomed and now dies has been useful and helps us to create good soil for the future. But now is a great time for you to do a bit of spiritual gardening in your own lives. Do a bit of weeding, check your balance, allow some space for the Holy Spirit to work, and in time we will grow and produce good fruit once again. Amen.